Hi, what's up, Solarpreneurs? We are here with another episode, and I'm here live in Boise, Idaho. We recently had this guy's business partner on, but we're back here with Mr. Dan Cranford. Thanks for coming on the show with us today.
Thank you, dog. Appreciate you inviting me out here.
Yeah, and I know you're hesitant to do a podcast, took some bribing and whining and dining this guy. But we're excited to have him on, and he's involved in a lot of different businesses now, so we're going to hear all about it, but he's still grinding in solar too out here. So do you want to give us maybe your background, how you got into solar and everything, and what you're up to now?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, man. So I got into solar probably 2016, right around there.
Okay.
No, probably further back. When did you get into solar?
Yeah, I was 2016, so you're probably 2015 or something.
2015?
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, so I had moved to California with my wife. My wife wanted to finish some grad school down there.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have a job lined up or anything. I started working at a construction company as a construction project manager. And I was there for about a month, and then they fired me because I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And when I was leaving, I packed all my stuff up and I was leaving. And the receptionist said, "Hey, you should try doing solar.
Yeah.
My husband sells solar, and he thinks you'd do really good at it."
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I know I'll fail at solar because I tried selling things in the past.
Yeah.
Not any real door-to-door stuff, but I tried selling cars for a little bit. And what I pictured a salesman to be, I knew I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I'll try it because I don't have a job.
Yeah.
But as soon as I find a job, I'm going to be done with it.
Yeah.
So I started going to the meetings. I started selling. One thing I could do is I could work. I could put in the time and go out and work.
Yeah.
I wasn't like good with people or confident in any way in doing it.
Yeah.
But I pulled ahead right away and was leading the team that I was on almost immediately just because I was putting more time in than anybody else.
Yeah.
So I made that work for several years. I ended up really liking it because it seemed so much easier than anything I'd done in the past.
Yeah.
I'd done a lot of physical labor. Where you have a sore body and it's just really draining work. And getting into this, solar, it was a whole new world to me. Yeah. And like their positive mentality in the meetings was so foreign to me because like on a job site, it's just really crude and like negativity is just kind of it's pretty normal culture. Yeah. And so it just seemed kind of nerdy or weird at first. Yeah. But I caught on to that and kind of realized that that's what I needed to do. I needed a more positive mindset. Yeah. So I kind of got addicted to it. I mean, I went all the way in. I was reading all the books. Yeah. But when I was on the doors, I was so afraid. I would just picture the guy that would teach us, like the trainings. I would just picture I was him. Because if I was picturing I was me or trying to do my thing, it was just I couldn't do it. So. So I was basically acting like I was him on the doors, and it worked really well. Made that work for several years, made good money. And then it got to the point where I was starting hearing stories about other people and in other with other companies just making way more money because at the prices we were selling at. Other companies that were selling that high, their reps were making like 5 times the amount of what we were making on the deals. I didn't believe the stories for a long time, and eventually it kind of caught on. So I kind of started putting deals through some other companies and seeing that would work. But what it ended up leading to is I ended up starting a supplement company. Yeah. Because I was like, actually, I'm going to try to do my own thing. Because I'd put all this time into solar, and I decided if I want to put all this time into something, I want to put it into something that I'm going to build myself. Yeah. And so I started a supplement company, workout supplements, like pre-workout. We started with one product, a pre-workout.
Yeah, that's good.
And do you have some?
Dark Mountain. I think I still might have a couple packets.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I liked our product. I liked our branding. It was a lot of fun starting that company, but I realized really quickly you had to sell a ton of pre-workout to equal one solar deal.
Yeah.
And you're selling it online, and you picture online like, well, it'll be easy. You just have, thousands of customers everywhere.
Yeah.
I put a lot of time into that company, and then I didn't put any money into marketing. I just tried to market it myself, as like growing an Instagram and Facebook and trying to talk with people about it.
Yeah.
And it grew pretty organically. And it had steady growth, and we were doing well. But my wife had just had our first child, and I was like 30 grand in debt. When I left solar, I had a lot of money saved up, and that money went like that because I was putting it into the new business, and my new business, I wasn't taking anything out of it. I was putting it all into new products. So then we came out with protein and like a post workout.
Yeah.
And so it was all going into that. And it turned out where I was just in the hole, and I was like, man, I got my wife, a new kid, and I'm kind of letting them down. I'm not making any money. I'm putting all this time into this company. So I backed away from that a little bit. I was like, I'm going to recommit myself to solar. I need to go make some money.
Yeah.
So I recruited a little team, and we probably had, 5 guys and me, and we went all in. I started my own dealership, and we partnered with an installer, and my deal with my reps were I would close all the deals and they would set them. Nice. And when I would close them, we would split it 50-50.
Yeah, good.
Which is something that they hadn't heard of before. Nobody was really doing that at the time. They would get like a small, if they were getting a portion of the deal at all, it was a really small portion.
Right.
So they were all stoked about that, and so they were working really hard, and they started making really good money just as setters. And I started making really good money. That $30,000, was that problem became not a problem instantly.
Pretty quick. That's awesome.
And then we started making such good money that I was like, I'm selling this supplement company. I'm not even going to do that anymore. I'm just going to go all in on solar again.
Yeah.
Because I was running my own dealership now, making really good money on each deal. My reps were all happy. Everything just felt really good. And a lot of people were telling me, like, don't pay your reps 50% of the deal. Like, that's stupid. You're paying them way too much. Yeah. And I was like, man, it's working. It's working really well. These guys are working really hard. They're making good money. I feel good about it. I'm making good money. So we just went with it. And
nice.
Did that for a couple of years down there. And it worked out really well. I ended up in the middle of all that, starting my cousin. I was down in Southern California. My cousin lives in Boise, Idaho. Oops. Hey, you? That wasn't me.
Cut.
And he wanted to start a construction company, but he needed money to be able to buy property, the land, and be able to build a house to sell it. Mm-hmm. Well, I had money, and I had access to other people who had money. So he took me on as a 50% partner in that business. And I did all the back end work that I could do from afar. And he was up here building houses. So I started making money that way as well. Nice. And it kind of got to the point where my wife and I, knew our time in California was temporary. Yeah. I'm from Montana, and I had to get back to closer to elk and deer and the rivers and mountains. And
mountains were calling your name.
They were calling my name. Yeah. So we were like, well, we have this construction company up in Idaho, and the market was taking off. So we're like, let's go try it out. So we moved up here about a year and a half ago, and brought the solar company up as well. So we've been selling solar here and been building houses as well. I ended up, I don't know if I mentioned, but I ended up selling that supplement company. Yeah. And it's still out there. They're still selling supplements, but
nice. Okay.
Yeah, it's a tough industry. Yeah, for sure. But definitely. It's worked out. And so, yeah, the house building thing's been fun, learning how to do that. But so right now that's what I'm in. I'm in solar, and then I also build houses. So that's the nice thing about solar is it kind of, you can work your own schedule, and you do have extra time that you can put into other things, and if you're doing solar right, you're making enough money to where you can invest into something and put time into it and actually have another source of income.
Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, and that's always been one of the cool things about solar is all the freedom that people have with it. And yeah, it's like I always say, modern day gold rush, make a ton of money, and some guys maybe get a little greedy, whatever, take advantage and hear the horror stories. But so much freedom and cool stories like that I think a lot of us have heard being in solar for a while. But yeah, definitely some stuff to unpack there that I want to ask you more about, Dan. But what I forgot to mention is that Dan, he was basically my first manager when I got to solar in 2016. I guess we're kind of different offices, but I know you stepped into kind of like, maybe like regional type, helping the teams and all that. So I learned a ton from Dan and Dallon that just came on the show pretty recently. And they partnered up. They're running Tuyo Power right now. Doing a lot of deals out here in Idaho. So I know with Dallon, we talked about the Idaho market and figuring all that out. But yeah, like for you, I think you have a unique experience because you've been in all these different businesses. You've been in supplements and you've always kind of been doing solar a little bit on the side. I know now you guys are in like multiple businesses too. So
Yeah.
And yeah, like I'm sure you could grow it bigger. I know you guys haven't had like giant teams and all that, but you've always still been producing with smaller teams and been able to do different businesses, which is cool. Most guys that I see, if they try to do other stuff while they're doing solar, then they just don't have any success at all a lot of times, but you've still been able to grow and still get a lot of deals. So what do you feel like for people trying to do that? Maybe they're growing other businesses on the side. Do you have any advice having your feet in so many different businesses? What's been like a way you've been able to do this and still do solar too?
I am doing it now, but I would say when I first started that supplement company, I wasn't doing it because I pretty much backed away fully from solar, which was a mistake. Because like I said, I spent all my savings and I ended up taking out a loan and getting in the hole. So I think my advice would be don't forget where that money's coming from. Like you got to have cash flow. And if you're starting up a new business, it might take a minute before you have any. Depending on what you're doing, especially with something like a supplement company or like if you started a shirt company or apparel or anything like that, your margins are really so small and you have to sell so much stuff that it's going to take a while to build up before you have any kind of income that you can live off of. And usually when you're doing solar and you're making really good money, you get used to a certain kind of lifestyle. And if you're married, it's really hard to tell your wife, like, all right, we're going to have to level down. We got to stop spending it. You can do that, but it's definitely hard to, once you raise the bar with a certain level of living, it's hard to go back. And so if you're wanting to get into other industries, I'd say don't stop the solar until you have for sure figured out, a way to make income. You might figure out, the business you start is not something that you can fully commit to it and you don't even really like it or you just don't see yourself being able to grow that business. I'm kind of ADD, so my mind's always kind of all over the place as far as like with the building and the solar, I can kind of bounce back and forth. It's kind of a little natural for me to be like that, but I've definitely had to refocus myself more on the solar side a lot of times to make sure that there is constant flow coming in. And that's the thing with solar. It's not like we were just talking about. It's not like, pest control or other things where you might have some residual coming in after a sale. It's one and done. And it's usually a nice, a really nice payout. But if you stop, then your income stops, and then savings, a lot of people might not realize how fast 200 grand will go. When you're used to spending, a good amount of money, that money goes so fast. So I wouldn't bank on your savings getting you by for very long. And when you're trying to start a new business, you want it to work. So you're putting a lot of money into that too. So So yeah, you definitely got to keep rocking it on the doors for sure, and that's why I mean it's not easy. You got to really hustle because now you're working. Really got to work just as hard on the doors doing the solar, but now you got a second project going on too.
Well, and I think probably maybe you'd agree, but it seems like for me, I have this podcast that I do. I still sell solar myself, but I think part of what's allowed me to still be able to do the podcast and some coaching and all that I'm doing is because it's like really complementary to solar. So it's like I do spend a good amount of time, but at the same time I'm growing in solar, and I probably could sell more if I just stopped doing this podcast and focus 100% on sales. But it seems like for you, sure, supplement, that's kind of something completely different, but now you're in construction. I know you're doing some some stuff with roofs.
Yeah.
So do you feel like that's easier where it's kind of complementing solar?
Yeah, it has, because like I said, when I first started my dealership, it was just a dealership and we were selling for installers. And so what it's allowed us to do is, now after building houses, I'm familiar with permitting and getting things permitting. And, I have a team of electricians and everything just from building. So it got to the point after we moved up here where we were like, well, let's just install our own stuff too, because we, I have all the connections now to be able to do that. And so they do kind of play off each other, and roofing as well. We do a lot of roofs up here to be able to do solar. And typically we would just tell the solar installer, hey, this one needs a re-roof, and then they go take care of it. But we use our own roofers and everything to be able to do that now. And so there's a little more profit in it. And so, they've worked off of each other pretty well here.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, something else that I want to get into that you mentioned in your story before is just when you first started your dealer, you said you only had like 5 guys. You built it up. You guys were cranking deals, which is pretty cool. And I think a lot of people in solar think, oh, the guys that are closing tons of deals, making all the money, they must have giant teams, just like the best setters, all that. Like you only had a team of 5, and even with that, I know you guys, making a ton of money, closing a lot of deals. So I think that's sometimes a limiting belief that people have is, oh, we gotta have this giant team, and the only people making lots of money in solar and closing lots of deals have these big teams. But I like hearing stories like that, and I've heard it from a lot of people. I mean, Ricardo Ritchie, I had him, the podcast had 400 deals in a year, and he really only had probably maybe 6 or 7 solid setters, just giving them deals. So it's I think quality is definitely better than quantity a lot of times. But what was that like? Do you have any tips on guys that are trying to build kind of a setter closer model like that? Do you do anything to get these solid guys and just be able to produce like that with a team?
Well, I wasn't super selective with who I was recruiting. I recruited a couple guys, and then they brought on their friends. They had they'd been doing solar, so they knew how to set. But so I wasn't, really selective with them. But when I brought them on, I was really clear about a few things, because I was in the hole. I was really driven. I got to go make some money. I got to make this happen. So I didn't have an office at the time. And so I said, we're going to go out. We're going to knock. I had, our set hours. We'd go knock them. And then what would happen is they would set up appointments throughout the day, throughout the week. And so my rule was we would meet at the Costco parking lot, and we would ride out together and come home together. And so I'm the closer. If they book a deal at 9 o'clock in the morning, I have to be at Costco at 8:30 to get that deal at 9. But they all had to meet me there. So if somebody booked an early deal, the whole team was kind of paying for it. Which it didn't create any animosity or anything between the guys. I felt like it created more of a team culture. We ride out together. If you book this appointment, we're all going to ride out together. And then they'd all, hope that deal would close when we were out there. Or somebody might book a deal for 8 o'clock at night. And so the whole team's just out there super late, because how long deals can go. So at that time, there was a lot of times I was leaving home, at 8 and then not coming home till 9:30 at night. It kind of became a normal, crazy schedule, which isn't super sustainable if you have, kids and everything. And as we had another kid and they got older, like, I can't do that schedule. I'm not allowed to do that schedule anymore. My wife wouldn't let me do that.
Yeah.
But it was, I think that was a big part of it. We were all committed to the schedule. I would get out there early, drop them all off in their area. I would start going to deals.
Yeah.
And I love the setter closer model, because when all you do is sit in deals like all day, every day, you get so good at closing deals.
Yeah.
You just learn, you learn how to read people way better. You know all the points that you want to bring up. You can feel the vibe in the room, which way you need to steer it. And then it gets to the point where you're like, you pull up to the house, you're like, I'm going to close this. There might be some factors that keep me from closing this, but I will close this if those don't come up.
Yeah.
And so did really well. I mean, we were doing really well, and they were excited because they were making really good money and everything. But I think a big part of it was just that we were all fully committed to that schedule.
Yeah.
And if they didn't show up, to ride out with us, I'd say, obviously you can go knock, but you won't knock for us that day. Like, put that deal through somebody else, because we ride out together. We'll knock together. Yeah. And they were all really good about it. Yeah. I mean, I didn't get phone calls with excuses like why they couldn't come, and it made recruiting a lot easier too. These guys were all making really good money, and so it did start to grow pretty quick. I mean, where we did have a fairly good sized team, which I actually probably dropped the ball with that. I should have had like smaller, manageable teams. Yeah. I feel like once it grew a little bit, I did, because we weren't able to ride out together as well. Yeah. Some of them lived further away, and I lost a little bit of control there. And so I learned a little bit about management there, but mainly from failing at it. Yeah. I was just hearing somebody talk about, and Jocko talks about this in one of his management books, but just having like teams of like 5 or 6 or less.
Yeah, well, like pods,
Yeah. So if you have a team of 12 guys, like, split them up and then empower, guys in that group to be leaders and let them, take charge, which is something I didn't do then, which I, should have done. But
yeah, that's huge. Yeah, no, I think it's so cool because, guys are fully bought in. But any successful setter closer company, I think I've seen similar thing where it's just like you have the clear expectations, and guys don't want to live up to that, then they just go somewhere else. Because I think what the mistake a lot of people make is they'll just bring guys in, and they're so desperate to get more bodies in the door, get more setters in. It's like, oh, you're only able to work like 2 hours today, that's fine. And then of course other people see that and they're like, okay, well, let's just drive out. We'll go do 2 hours on our own, drive out together.
Yeah, because you'll always have a guy who comes in and they want to do their own schedule. Yeah. And I think most managers are down with that right off the bat, because they're like, well, whatever you can work. Like, if you can even get me 1 lead a week, like, it'll be great. But it causes big problems, because the other reps, you can't really hide this stuff from them. Like, they see what's going on, and it messes with the culture, and then they start to get lackadaisical, or, well, I don't need to work like all the hours. I can work my own. I don't need to ride out with the team. Yeah. And so I noticed the effects of that several times too.
Yeah, and I think the community aspect is huge too, because I'm part of a big team right now. So, like, it gets tougher and tougher to do it with big teams. But what I've seen just being part of a big team is there's not like a necessarily a requirement. Like, people can still be part of the team. But the people that are doing stuff like that, they're going same areas, 4 or 5 people meeting up and going out.
So they're still meeting together.
And they're the ones posting the deals. So they're almost like creating the culture within it. People are seeing, they're like, okay, this is why they're having success, because they're all going out together.
Yeah.
They're doing these car groups. They're holding each other accountable. So even for those listening, even if you're part of a big office, I think that's a huge thing that you can do, is just, like Dan said, create these little pods of people, go out together, and even if it's a bigger office, you can still form part of it. Like, we have guys posting in our team group me. I think we got like 70, 80 people in this group me right now. But
holy cow.
So it's a big team, but guys will post, hey, we're in this area today. We're down in Chula Vista. Who's meeting me down here? and these guys are, naturally the leaders. These guys are producing the most typically. So yeah, I think it's super important, but yeah, a lot easier to manage when it's just you telling them to meet you at Costco.
Yeah. And I don't know how sustainable that is when, like the way we were doing it, whenever the first deal is, we all ride out together because all my guys were single. They weren't married or didn't have kids. So their schedules were open and they understood that. But, you have people on the team with kids and whatnot. They might need a more set schedule.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Yeah, I think, to get used to meeting at the same time, leaving and being together as a team, going out together and coming home together too. I think coming home together was a big part of it because we were able to share a lot of stories on the way home, and a lot of kids would have questions on, things they could do at certain parts of their pitch, and and we'd celebrate together, go out to eat or whatever if we had a really good day. So it was
nice.
It worked out really well for us at that point.
Yeah, would you guys have like meetings, or would you pretty much count
the
that
meeting
as
would be so it'd take like 25 minutes to get out to the area, and so the meeting would be in the car on the way out. So I would train. I would be as proactive as I could about it. Not just listening to music on the way out or whatever, but I'd really try and get more production somehow out of all of us. And so we would talk and train each other on the way out too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it's cool hearing that, and worked well, I know. But now you're doing similar thing in Idaho, so I want to switch gears a little bit. And we did a podcast with Dallin, your business partner, and talked about a few of these things. But I want to hear your perspective too. So, what's it been like transitioning to Idaho? Like, what do you think of the market? Has it been tougher than California, or what's been your experience so far in Idaho?
It's definitely a different market from California, and I knew it would be. I was familiar with the market before we came here because before I actually moved up here, with the help of Dallin, actually, and this is before Dallin even came on as a partner. His brother-in-law lived up here and had done sales and said, "Hey, he might, try selling some deals for you." So I reached out to him, and he was interested. So I started getting leads online up here, and they were all over the place in this valley. And he would drive to them, and right away he started closing them. And the systems here. So one thing that's different about Idaho is the systems here are way bigger than California. Our average deal in California might be 4.5 kilowatts, and it used to be bigger than that, but as the utility rates go up, the average system size will probably just keep going down. Well, we've done, multiple 25 kilowatt systems here, just on, houses kind of out in the country. They have a shop and they weld back there, but electricity here is so cheap, people don't worry about, running the AC. Half the people in California don't run AC. You're sitting in a deal closing it and you're sweating, and the kids are running around sweating, and people don't do that here. I mean, it's set at 69, 70 degrees in the summertime, and you tell somebody in California that they're like, "That's crazy. I would never do that. Even if it was free, that just seems crazy." And but everybody does it here because we've never had to adapt to really expensive electricity. So everybody's just used to having a nice, cool house in the summer. So the systems here are really big, which is nice. But electricity here is so cheap that you do have to cut the price down quite a bit. And we've never sold on just savings, or that's not been our big sell point. Even in California, we were cutting their bill in half.
Definitely.
It wasn't all about that. There was, you point everything else out, and then that's kind of the cherry on top. Well, here, even if you cut the profit down pretty minimal on a deal, they're most likely still going to be paying more with solar than they were, with the utility. So you have that, and then because these systems are so big and expensive, their tax credits here are huge. And so the most people here aren't making the type of money where they can really take full advantage of a tax credit. I know there's a lot of sales reps out there that might sell it like you're getting this $25,000 check next year, and but like to sell honestly, there's a lot of people might, out of a $25,000 tax credit, they might only get $5,000 out of it. At which, where if they were to apply the full tax credit, their payment would still be a little bit higher than where they're at the utility. So without a tax credit, then it makes it a little tougher to sell. But on the doors, and you've seen this since you've been out here knocking, it's way easier on the doors than California. People are much more willing to talk. It's normal for them to step outside and chat with you and show you around, and which makes knocking a lot easier. It's a lot easier to knock when people are easier to deal with. But actually sitting down and selling deals, it's not any easier here for sure than in California. And it's when things happen, like the rates go up on a solar loan in California, it doesn't really affect you too much because there's still such good savings there. Well, here it does affect you quite a bit. I mean, the market has slowed down a fair amount here, and that's one of the reasons we got into installing our own. Is we wanted to have control over the quality of the work, but also we needed to be a little bit more profit in the deal, and that we'd be able to be more competitive with our pricing if we were to do that. So, so it kind of led us into that. And so instead of looking at like, oh crap, this market's crap, we can't sell here, we've kind of pivoted and figured out how we can get the cost down to make it more sellable. So
that's good.
We've made it work, but it is a totally different market from California.
Yeah, I've seen that. And if you haven't listened to the podcast we do with Dylan Pancary's business partner, you can listen to that because we got into that quite a bit too. Just differences in selling and, how to deal with nicer people. Because I was just telling Dylan, it's funny out here, you kind of have to deal with it different because people, sometimes maybe waste your time a little bit more because they're too nice that they'll just talk to you for an hour.
I'll talk to you for an hour, and then you're like, oh, I've got this. And then you move forward with the solar and like, oh, no. Yeah, we're not going to do that. What?
Like, been here for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So we went over that a little bit, but no, I like what you're saying though. Is like always figuring out ways to be more profitable, and I think that's what great business people are doing. They're constantly like evaluating, how can I be more profitable here? How can I maybe cut some costs here? And it's cool that you guys are starting to roll out your own installs. So I wanted to ask you about that. Is I know you talked about how you have more connections just being in construction and all that out here. But what has it been like rolling out your own installs? Has that been like harder than you thought, easier than you thought?
It has been our biggest issue with it really is just being able to partner with the lending companies.
Okay.
Over the years, they've become a lot more stringent on who they'll partner with.
Okay.
And so some of the top ones that that normally use in a deal, they want to see a lot of income coming into the company or cash flow to even consider partnering with you.
Yeah.
Whereas before, it would have been a lot easier. So right now we can only install cash deals. As far as the very first install we did, I don't know if Dallin talked about it at all.
Yeah, I didn't talk about it. So
our very first install was it's just over 25, it's a 26.5, I think, kilowatt system.
Wow, huge.
Ground mount on a hill.
Nice.
And so probably the hardest situation you could do for solar. I mean, rooftop solar, we've done those, really simple. But to do the ground mount and get all the footers dug and all the permitting for that, and it was definitely a challenge, but it was actually probably a good place to start. We look at that system and it looks awesome. It's the coolest looking system I've seen because we went back through and all the pipe on it, we painted it black.
Nice.
Well, it's like a $13 million property between the house and his property. We were like, and he had a parade of homes coming up, and it's right there.
Good,
we had to make it look really good. So we painted all that black, and we put like this cool skirting around it, and so the challenge of actually installing wasn't bad at all. I mean, we learned as we went.
Nice.
We had no idea what we were doing. And I look at it and I'm like, how the hell did we even do that? We had no idea what we were doing. That thing looks freaking sweet.
Nice.
But so that end of it actually went pretty smooth.
Yeah, that's awesome. So will they count? Because I'm just thinking for people that want to like start up their own installs and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they count if you have a dealer but you're doing installs through different people? They won't look at that and kind of consider.
They'll
that?
look at that. They'll look at that too. Yeah, because they're just looking at. They really want to see bank statements and see what kind of money you have coming in.
Okay.
And so, like I said, we've had smaller teams, but a lot of these they want to see over 500,000 coming in a month.
Oh wow. Okay.
And so, a lot of the bigger installers they can easily partner with these guys. Where we're a smaller team, and the guys do well, but there's not enough of them to where we consistently have 500 grand coming in every month.
Yeah.
And so that's been a little bit of a challenge. There's some that don't require that, but they've had really high interest in the past. We always like to use a little bit lower interest, but they're all getting higher now to where they might be options for us.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah. Well, no, it's different. Different type of game for sure when you're doing your own installs. Because we're just talking about this with Dallin too, but just anyone can pretty much go start their own dealer and just be like a glorified manager running a dealer.
Yeah,
got a lot of buddies that just become one-man dealers and don't even recruit a team.
Yeah.
But it's a whole different ball game. You're running all that, and on top of that, you're also running, your construction company. Dallin told me about other businesses you guys are thinking of getting in and all that. Yeah. So it sounds like a lot you're doing. But I asked Dallin this too. What's some advice? Because I know he's kind of more recent that you guys have been working together. But what has it been like rolling with a partner? Because I think before, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were pretty much doing everything yourself. I guess supplement company, you had a partner, right?
Yeah, I had a partner in that.
Yeah. But do you have any advice, people that are trying to, as down this, we'll hear what you say, but do you have any advice, people trying to work with a partner, maybe some stuff you learned from the supplement company that, ways to communicate or stuff that you would do different working with a partner?
Yeah, I might have some advice that could be helpful. I would say if you're going to start a company or a dealership, I would always do it without a partner. Okay. I would start that on your own because getting it started is pretty easy. Okay. Whatever company it is, to get it started, to form your LLC and get start getting some equipment or whatever you're doing, or start getting materials and start getting a couple jobs under your belt. Yeah. It's easy to do yourself, and what happens is it puts you in a position where now, instead of just like taking on a partner and you do it together, now you can actually sell a portion of it to a partner. Now you have something marketable. All right, you can come on, for X amount, you can buy into the company, and you can show them that it's profitable, and they can see they're going to get the return back. So they have that, but you definitely want to be careful about who you start, because with my building, I have a partner. I have a partner with the solar now. And I have, I had a partner, with the supplement company. Yeah. And so I did learn some things, and I knew Dallin really well before he came on as a partner. I knew he was a hard worker. I knew he was extremely loyal. Yeah. He stuck with that first company that we were with forever, even when he knew like I had left and started making a lot more money.
We both left.
Yeah. Yeah. You had left too. And Dallin, he was still there. And we were both making, instead of like $200 a kilowatt, now we're making $1,500 a kilowatt on a deal. And I'm like, how are you still there, dude? Like, there's just like because they're selling really high but paying out really little. And I have no hard feelings against that company because they taught me how to sell. And if it wasn't for them teaching me how to do that, I never would have figured it out. And
and they did eventually start paying a little bit more, but and he still was super loyal.
Yeah. So he was super loyal, which is something I really liked. I knew he would be a good partner, and when we moved up here, one thing I really felt like I would need help with was recruiting. I wanted to start building teams and managing them and help training guys. Yeah. And so I brought him on with that role. He ended up moving up here from California, with his family. And but I think that's probably the biggest piece of advice is I would not start anything with a partner.
Okay.
You know, a lot of times you're talking with your buddy and you think of a good idea together and you want to take off with it, but your buddy, a lot of times that's as far as he really wants to go.
Yeah,
and then you start taking off with it and you're putting in all this time and effort and you're seeing like your buddy's just kind of waiting and laying back like, oh man, like I'm excited for you to start making us some money.
Yeah.
And that's the vibe you get. And then what happens, you can, you know, when you have it 50-50 and your partner's not putting in the time and effort, then it's hard to make that partnership work.
Yeah.
And so, and I knew Dallin, I wouldn't have that issue with Dallin. But yeah, I would always start by yourself and then be really, really careful about who you bring on as a partner. And you might not, you know, after you start yourself, you might see you don't need a partner.
Yeah.
You know, you can do all these things yourself and there's great money. And when you bring on a partner, you got to know that, you know, what you're making, your profit, pretty much going to get cut in half. I mean, you just, or whatever percentages you come up with, but a big portion of it's going to be gone now. And you have to kind of factor that in and look like, am I even going to be able to get by if I all of a sudden don't have this income coming in?
Yeah.
You know, and it depends on how you organize it with your new partner, but generally they're going to want to start getting payment or payment on the deals that are getting done, especially if they're putting a lot of time in, which they should be if that's, you know, the type of person you pick. So yeah, there's some different things you want to pay attention to there. You definitely want to be careful about it.
Right. Yeah. No, it's tough. And yeah, I mean, many people heard the podcast in the beginning, but I originally had a partner in on the podcast. And even that got super tough. That wasn't even like a real business in the beginning, really, but like even just coordinating podcasts with another guy, and then he wanted to take it one direction, I wanted to take it another direction. He started making some money off of it, and then we're like, you know, okay, how are we going to split this up? We didn't have any agreements in place, nothing like that. So yeah, I can imagine it's
it can stunt your growth because you might be really starting to grow this business, and you might have a business partner who's just not putting in the time, and you're really motivated, driven, and you can see where it's going and where you can get it to, but you realize how much effort and time you're putting into it. And it gets to the point where like, man, I don't know if I even want to get to that point, because I don't want to get to that point and just having you know, given this guy, you know, all that money and, you know, everything from, and so you start to hold yourself back, which is the last thing you want to do. You don't want to have to, you know, pull on the reins. You want to go full in. So you definitely want a partner who you feel will, and that's what I really like about Dallin, is we're both like competitive in nature. And so we've both done 75 hard twice. The second time we did it was here in Idaho. We did it together. And we both finished it, and you know, we knew we would, because we didn't want to go to the, you know, him the next day or him come to me and be like, I failed. I feel so stupid. But it transfers into just normal work life too. Like Dallin doesn't want to see me doing all the work and him feel like, oh man, he wants to be the one that's like doing all the work and pulling everything. Obviously he wants to see me doing that too, but that's kind of where it works, is we do that. You know, we kind of are both putting in as much as we can to keep it afloat. And there's sometimes, you know, Dallin is, you know, he's leading, you know, and I'm, you know, feel like I'm barely getting by. And then there's times when I feel like, you know, I'm leading, and and it's good to be able to have that kind of dynamic in a partner.
Yeah, no, I see that. And I know both you guys for a long time. I know we're both competitive, and it's funny, these guys drag me to the gym at 6 a.m. I'm more like a 7 a.m. type of guy, but got dragged to the gym at 6 a.m. with both of them. And Dallin was telling me that you guys just have great, you won't text each other if you're going to the gym.
Oh yeah,
because you don't want to hear that one's maybe not going or feeling tired today.
So because there's times when, like, because I get up at 5, and if I wake up my boy, like our younger kid, then I'll have to take him. And Dallin's got a young kid too. Sometimes he might wake his kid up, and he has to put him back down. But he won't text me like, hey, I might not make it, because he doesn't want to discourage me from going. And same with me. Good. So it helps. I went forever. I never really had a lifting partner, but I can see now. Yeah, it's nice having that accountability.
100%. Well, yeah. Last question, Dan, before we start wrapping up here. I didn't really get into this with Dallin, but I know both of you guys, you got little kids. You're both have your feet in a lot of businesses and doing a lot. So, like for people that have kids and are trying to run businesses with family, I know you said your wife doesn't let you do some of the things that maybe you did before and all that. But what's it been like just as far as like, raising your kids, having that dynamic with your wife? Do you have any advice for entrepreneurs or maybe people managing teams where they got to worry about their family or, I don't know, mistakes you made or thing that's working well in business? Well, also trying to be there for your wife, raise a family and all that.
Yeah, it's definitely tricky.
Yeah.
It sometimes feels backwards because when you're, our age, we still really have to hustle, to set ourselves up for the future. Like there's a lot of time that needs to be put in, and this is when our kids are young and they're growing up. And I realized this during COVID when we couldn't really knock in California, and I was home a lot more, and I built relationships with I only had one boy at the time, but I got a lot closer to him, and I realized, like, man, if I wasn't working so much, like I'd be able to keep this really good relationship. Boy, I know him a lot better, understand him better.
Yeah.
He sees that I love him, so he listens to me better. Like this is just working so well.
Yeah.
It seems backwards that you have to work so hard when these kids are growing up, and it seems like they need you. You can build that relationship with them better. And then once you start making money, you get a little older and you don't have to work as much. These kids are in college or whatever, and or in high school, or they're gone.
Yeah.
And that opportunity to build that relationship is almost not there anymore.
Yeah.
So that part seems I can never.
Yeah, it's tough.
But I sometimes think, maybe your kids need to see your work ethic. They need to see, like, hey, this is I respect, what he does, and it just kind of maybe forms that in them. I think a lot of my work ethic comes from, my dad, and he worked really hard and still does, and he never complains about it or anything.
Awesome.
But step one, if you don't have kids or a wife, make as much money as you can. Save and invest that money. Don't just spend it on stupid crap, because you will for sure need it. If you can figure out how to invest that and get some residual income to kind of start paying your bills, that will free you up in the future to spend more time with your wife and kids. If you're already married and you have kids that need you around, in door to door, I think our wives a lot of time get used to us having kind of a whatever schedule. And so when you really need to ramp it up and put more time in, they might not understand it. Whereas in a normal job, especially in California, they're working 8-hour days and they're driving an hour and a half to get to work. So they're gone. They might be gone 11 hours of the day. And so if you weren't doing solar, you would be doing something like that. And so I would just get used to, a lot of the times it's just that you need to step it up, put the time in, really commit to that time, and let your wife see that you're working those hours. Let her hold you accountable. Let her know like what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish. Because if she doesn't see results or doesn't feel like you're actually out there working, she might start wanting you home more, because she might not see what you're, because you're not bringing in the bacon or whatever the way you should be. But if you say, hey, I'm going to send you a picture when I get to the doors, I'm committed, I'm going to start knocking at 1:00 and I'm going to knock till 8:00, and I'm going to do it these days, and you send her a picture of your first door. That's and awesome. Say it's got to be at this time, and I'm going to send it to you. And that way, if you don't send a picture to her, she knows that you're not on the doors and you feel stupid about it. And
yeah, that's good.
And then, and take a picture of your last door, so that she knows you're out there hustling. You're not just playing around, but yeah, definitely spend time with your kids though. One thing I have changed is like, I don't work Saturdays or Sunday.
Okay.
I used to work every Saturday. When we were going really hard, I was working really long days, and I was working Saturday too. I didn't see my wife a lot, but I make sure my weekends are all about, my wife and kids. It's all about them, what they want to do, and trying to build that relationship with them. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, like you're saying, there's going to be different phases. You're going extremely, and if you're single, listen to this. Yeah, go extremely hard, 7 days a week, I would say.
Yeah, because there will be a time when you're married with kids where you'll look back, and especially with the way the solar market is right now, if you're in a place where you can be making a ton of money, well, you might be married 5 years from now with kids and in a situation where you just don't have that kind of income, and you'll look back and be like, man, I wish I would have worked way harder. I wish I had invested some of that money. I wish I hadn't wasted it all on this stupid crap. Like make smart decisions, because you'll either be thanking yourself later on, or you'll be kicking yourself in the butt.
Yeah, was it to say you can either live with the pain of discipline now or the pain of regret later?
Yeah. And the pain of regret just cuts way deeper. You don't want to have that. Discipline actually feels good. That's a good pain.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but no, and I love too what you're saying just about having just kind of the accountability with your wife when you have different goals. We actually had a guy on our team hit 50 deals in a month last month in California.
Jeez.
This is 2023. We're recording this, and it's funny. He said pretty much the same thing. Like every night he would get home after he was done selling, and his wife and kids would like give him like the accountability check. Like, Dad, did you get your 3 deals today or whatever? And like super bought in. So I love what you're saying about getting the family bought in. And I think some of my best times selling, when I would win competitions and things like that, is I would literally have my wife like drop me off in my area. And just like leave me there. That's like similar things.
That's smart. Well, because we did 75 hard, and I've done, the first time I did it, I finished 75 hard. I did phase 1, and then I didn't end up doing phase 2, 3. There's not a 4th, is there?
I don't think so. I haven't done any of the phases.
Yeah, so I did phase 1. But anyway, so I got really good at doing what I said I was going to do. But for some reason, I felt like 75 hard had this special power to where I felt like there was somebody holding me accountable, or like somebody was helping me out. I don't know what it is, and I tried to figure out like what gave me that extra juice to be able to stick with that for that long, because there's been a lot of things that I haven't been able to stick with, and so I was talking with Dallin, and he was saying something he did like during his competitions and stuff, and this is something you can try with your wife and kids, is say, all right, these are the things I want to do. I want to knock these hours. These are the times I'm going to be on the door. I want to make this many phone calls a day, and whatever it is, it doesn't have to be a lot of things, but I'm committed to do these things for, 80 days or whatever it is. And if I do it for the 80 days, we're taking a family trip, or it could be just you and your wife. We're taking a trip. We're going to go, to Costa Rica, and we're going to spend a week there, all inclusive, and get your wife super jacked about that.
Yeah, that's smart.
To the point, because your wife is going to get to the point where she might be irritated because you're working so much. But if she knows that you're working towards this thing that's going to benefit the family, she's also going to be pushing you.
That's good.
And if one of those things is reading 10 pages a day, before you go to bed, she might be like, well, did you get your pages in? Like, I know that's going to take time away from me, but like, get that done, because I want to go on this trip. And so I thought that was a really cool thing Dallin said he did when he was in competition, or doing, like his challenges with solar and whatnot. And awesome. It's something I actually never did, but I've started doing now. But because it gets your wife bought in, and she holds you accountable, and it's something like she really wants you to achieve. And if you bring your kids in on it, I haven't done that yet, but I imagine there's a pretty strong force behind that too. Yeah, no where doubt. You said your buddy, I mean, 50 deals in a month.
Yeah.
I mean, that
that's
you make
crazy.
more that month than most people do in 5 years.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it's fun. I actually heard that in the Ed Milet podcast too, that he used to do that.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, stay when he didn't have money, just set his sales goal and he would hit it and stay at like the Ritz Carlton or for a weekend somewhere super nice that he couldn't really afford, but
Right.
he was, around also you're around like the type of people that you're trying to, get to someday. So that's genius, super smart.
Yeah, I
I like
love
that a
that.
lot. Yeah. Well, Dan, it's been awesome having you on, and definitely a different perspective because usually we just have more solar guys on that haven't been in as many businesses as you have. So it's been cool hearing the perspective of a businessman like yourself.
Well, thanks for
A
having
lot of
me, dude.
businesses. Yeah.
Hopefully there was some type of value for somebody out there, because that's he said he had to like bribe me to be on here. It wasn't because I was like, oh, I don't want to be in your podcast. I just didn't want to destroy your base here or your guys. I just didn't know if there's any actual value I'd have to share with anybody. So hopefully there was something there for somebody.
No, I think so. And anyone listening, hopefully you'll reach out to Dan, let him know there was some value. You appreciated him coming on the show today. So speaking of that, if people want to reach out to you or maybe pick your brain about business or starting a deal or construction, anything like that, what's the best place to reach out to you, Dan?
Probably Instagram.
Okay.
I think my Instagram is Cranspot, CRAN underscore spot.
Okay.
My last name is Cranford, so it's short for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you want to come to Idaho and build a house here, we can build a house for you too.
Yeah. And get you solar.
And get solar on that thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, reach out to him. We'll link that in the show notes if you guys want to reach out to Dan. And any final, just to wrap up here, Dan, any final, words of wisdom for maybe a struggling rep or any other lessons you
I would
wrap up here?
I would say do 75 hard.
Okay.
If you're struggling in any way, just commit to doing 75 hard. Look at all the things you have to do on there and just commit yourself to doing them. Because if you do that, if you complete 75 hard, even if you don't complete it, you'll get a taste of what it would do for you.
Yeah.
And the benefits that you will get from doing something like that, you'll take with you forever.
Yeah.
And so I would say, or if you're not struggling, do it. But that's been a huge thing for me. That's changed a lot for me.
Yeah, I remember you were one of the people that convinced me to do it for the first time too. Yeah, I know it helped me a lot in a ton of different areas.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you don't know what that is, that's Andy Frisella's challenge thing where you do, it's like 2 workouts a day, reading 10 pages, gallon of water. I think that's it.
No, gallon of water.
No progress picture.
Yeah, you got to take a progress picture every day. No alcohol.
No alcohol. Okay.
And then, the 10 pages have to be out of a physical book.
Yeah.
So you can't just listen to it.
Yeah.
And it can't be on your phone either. You have to physically read it, which is good. You have a book in your hand and you kind of reconnect to like how people used to read, back in the day.
Yeah.
And
the diet, right?
Diet, yeah. Andy talks about, a lot of people who are struggling, that's kind of where they go to is alcohol, and it's one of the worst things you could do if you're struggling, especially because it's not something that is going to help you advance past that. It's going to numb it for a minute. But so that's a big part of it. No alcohol for 75 days. And I've had buddies try 75 hard, and that's their big hang up. They have a hard time. That's where they keep failing is 15 days in, they have to have a drink and they can't get past that. But the challenge, there's nothing on there that's, really, really hard to do. The probably the hardest thing really is the 2 workouts. One of them has to be outside. They both have to be 45 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it's a scheduling. And that's why I get up early and go to the gym, is because I got used to doing that. When I was doing 75 hard, I had to get my first workout done early so that I'd have time to get a second workout in.
Yeah.
But once you do that, you'll realize how much free time you have had that you weren't using, and how non-productive you've been in the past. And I'm about to do it again. Actually,
yeah, me too.
I need to get on that.
I know. Yep, I did it one time, and I need to do it again too. But yeah, what I like about it is you're just practicing keeping commitments to yourself. And I know you talked a little bit about that, but if you can't keep a commitment to yourself, then then like how should we think that we're going to keep commitments to other people?
Yeah, and it's hard to
keep the
see that until you do it. When you start keeping those commitments consistently over and over and over, you start to trust yourself.
Yeah.
Which gives you a ton of confidence because you're like, you know that when you decide you're going to do something, it will be done.
Yeah.
And it gives you chills at that point because you're like, oh shoot, I just committed. It's happening.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm still thinking about it. Like you've committed to it and it will happen. So you train your mind to really trust this person.
Yeah.
Like this person is going to do whatever you tell it to do. So be careful what you tell it to do. Like you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And because that's what I do.
Yeah, no, it's super powerful and really empowering. So, no, I think that's a good way to end it. So, I would definitely, whoever's listening, consider doing 75 hard for sure. And yeah, other than that, it's been awesome. Yeah, hit Dan up if you want to hear more about starting a dealer or starting an installation company. I'm sure he's happy to share some more tips. But thanks again for coming on the show today, Dan. It's been real.
Yeah, brother.
We'll have to have you on in the future.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, peace.